serving spiritual seekers around the world. Unity Online Radio.
Are you seeking more energy and ready to have more healings and revealings in your life? Then you've tuned into the right program. For the next hour, listen in as Reverend Temple Hayes, spiritual leader of First Unity at Unity Campus in St. Petersburg, Florida, shares with you tools you can use to transform your life. She will guide you on a journey to create a life that is intentional and dynamic. Now, here's your host, Reverend Temple Hayes.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for being part of our show, whether you're listening later or you're now live streaming with us on Facebook. We're so glad that you're here. We have a wonderful guest for you today, Linda Egenes. She is an expert of some of the greatest traditions that are written from the Eastern philosophies and belief systems, and we're so happy that she's here. I want to thank all of you for being an intentional spirit, and we say it all the time because we all need reminding. There's New Year's resolutions, there's people that make lists of things that they want to achieve, and they have good intentions, but there's also a distinction between someone who's intentional, because they are very clear about carrying through with those goals and values. They're very clear about no matter what, being committed to their dreams and their ideas. And Linda, you're one of those people, and I'm so glad you were committed to bringing us this wisdom that we can certainly use at any time, and we can certainly use right now. So welcome to our show.
Oh, thank you, Temple. That's very kind of you. Thank you.
And so before we delve into, so much of our conversation, and by the way, some of our live streamers do ask comments and different things, so we kind of bring them into the show as well. I'd like to know a little bit prior to the book that you have written and doing the kind of work that you do now with your website focusing on green and healthy inside out. What has made you? Where did your life start? Were you automatically destined in a mystery school, or did you have hard knocks that shaped you? Tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, that's a great question. I think I would say I was sort of a spiritual seeker from the start. My parents raised us to believe in God, but not to necessarily adhere to any one religion. My father had his issues with the Catholic Church. He was a free thinker, you could say, but I sort of wanted a spiritual community even as a child, and so a friend and I joined different groups, Christian groups, and learned about the Bible, and I really enjoyed that. And then when I was in college, I started the Transcendental Meditation technique, and I think that was probably the big turning point in my whole spiritual journey, because that gave me the means to tap into my own silence, my own happiness, my own source of wisdom inside, which is inside everyone, and which, there are many different ways to tap into that. And for me, this was just the perfect kind of means to be quiet, to be silent every day for 20 minutes twice a day. It just opened up a huge range of experiences for me, and it even led to kind of a career, because I became a teacher of the Transcendental Meditation technique, and then I ended up teaching at Maharishi University of Management, which is a fully accredited university in Fairfield, Iowa, where all the faculty, students, and staff all practice the TM technique and are experiencing this clarity of mind and rejuvenation of spirit and calmer emotions and all that, which really helps with the whole learning process and helps young people to develop, and to become a more self-realized person, which is what everyone there is seeking. And I met my husband there. So it's become really an integral part of my life and part of my whole journey. And then I became a writer, and what I wanted to write about was, being a healthy and happy person and spiritual wisdom. And so I write about the TM Transcendental Meditation, about meditation, and I also write about Ayurveda, which is the healing system from India, the traditional healing system from India. And so for me, it's been all a kind of a full circle.
Oh, that's a beautiful story. Do you feel, Linda, that people are becoming more aware, not only with adults and children and education? Are they opening up to the fact of how we're changed so much by silence and meditation? Are we moving forward in that? And I know that you and I are just giving our opinions, but our opinions are important. At least we're the people on the show. So what's your sense about that? Why have we gotten away from it? And is it complex to get people back to it?
Well, I would say that, basically I think that, tapping into the silent source, our own silent source, is really at the basis of all spiritual traditions. And maybe over the years it gets lost. But I feel like we are in a revival time right now where more and more people are really seeking this, if not just to escape the stress of our modern life. The fast pace of life is forcing us to seek more silence and more inner happiness and more calm from within. And I see it as a huge kind of time of awakening here in the United States and around the world. Just as an example, when you think about today, we take it for granted that the mind and body are intimately connected, that if we settle down with our mind, that the body also will settle down. But what we forget is that just 50 years ago, that was a really unheard of concept. In fact, one of my friends who was a TM teacher in New York City in the early 70s, she said that she would, one time she was saying this part of her introductory TM lecture, that if you, we quiet the mind through the mantra, through TM, we allow the mind to settle down, and then the body, because the mind and body are connected, the body also settles down. And she said that this man stood up and started screaming at her and saying, there is no evidence that the mind is connected to the body or that the body is connected to the mind. And so, and now, of course, science shows us this, and we know this from research, and that it's a widely accepted paradigm. So for me, having been a TM meditator since 1971, and having been, just seeing the whole growth of sort of this whole New Age movement, I feel like there's been lots of progress, and that we're totally on the right path.
I love your comments around that. Well, that's fascinating that somebody would take that kind of approach at this point in the 21st century and say that the mind and the body isn't connected. That's by itself pretty fascinating. Well, I know that I had
that
developed...
was 50 years ago, though. That was 50 years ago that person said that, just to make clear, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know that many years in leading a silent retreat, first of all, when it comes to me, to get back into the practice of the silence, it would feel, at first it felt kind of uncomfortable, because so many things were going on, but I had to develop that muscle, that benefited from being silent. And then, of course, the benefits are, it would take more than an hour show for us to share what the benefits are. I like to tell people in some of my teachings that we forgot what it was like when we learned to write our name in first grade, right? Or in before first grade, it felt awkward. You couldn't read it. It felt vulnerable. And that's how it feels, I think, to a lot of people when we start telling them, let's go, go be in the silent. They feel uncomfortable and vulnerable. But just like we mastered being able to write our name, we learn to master the benefit in sitting in the silence. I've had many chaplain retreats through my 25 years of ministry, and when you say, okay, we're getting ready to go into silence now, and I'm sure you've witnessed this many times, people become very anxious, don't they? And they start talking a lot.
Well, right. I think that it is very contrary to our modern life, where everything is go, 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 and it's all about more and more action and being busy every single minute, even, with social media invading our lives, even into the night and even in our private lives, and being on every moment and with the senses directed outward every moment, certainly. But yet we read more and more where people are saying, it's important to unplug. It's important to go within and to settle down and just completely not be outward directed for a while. And I think it is, you're right, it is scary to some people some of the time, many times. And so I think that that's where instruction helps, just helping people to have that experience, a simple, easy experience of meditation. I think, definitely that's where, the instructor is the important part, I think.
Absolutely, and it really calms that teacher archetype, that the shadow part of the teacher that wants to be in control and in charge, and all those various illusions that one puts on oneself. It really relaxes that out, and every now and then I found that I might be in my yada yada. My mentalizing can be going to town, or my theorizing, But if I go into the silence, it's very interesting. It's almost like I hear my soul laughing. I know that there isn't a word for normal. I think Jerry Seinfeld says that's a cycle on the washing machine. But do you ever have that? It's like you might be intensely concerned or thinking about something or whatever, but once you go into that place of real quiet, you almost like have a sense of humor inside. Does that happen to you, or do I need to go see a therapist?
No, I think that's beautiful, because I think what humor is just having a wider perspective. It's seeing your situation from a wider perspective and just seeing how it fits into the whole and how it actually could be funny from a certain point of view. And it's when we're so much in the boundaries that we lose our sense of humor, I think, and we think, we become so completely overshadowed by, the boundaries of what is happening. But if we can step back and look at it from wider perspective, and I definitely think that in my experience with TM, definitely, I think I could develop more of a sense of humor, certainly, but I think that it has helped me to develop a wider perspective. And in fact, the research shows that people, they're able to not only focus more sharply, but at the same time have this wider view. And I think that is really important in our world today, because we need a wider perspective in order to understand people who are different from us. In our world today, we have such diversity. In our country today, we have a growing diverse population, and we know that at the basis, everyone is the same. We are the same, human beings on the basis. We may be different on the surface, but that's beautiful if you can step back and take a wider perspective and not get too concerned about every difference in what this, how this threatens me or whatever. But if we have a wider perspective, if we're stationed in that silence, if we're stationed in a strong, stable self, the bigger self, then the differences don't threaten us anymore. And then we can enjoy the whole world family. In fact, the world becomes our family.
I love that. I love that. As you were talking, I was just kind of having somewhat of an epiphany that, because I live right across the street from the beach, when I walk over to the ocean and there it is, it's like there's something immensely expansive that happens, with the emotional body and with anything that, is going on. Then I go from a certain view, right, a certain sense of things, to just all of a sudden just enveloped in that, huge energy of infinity, and things that may have seemed to be larger than become a lessening or expansive. So when you were talking, I was kind of visualizing that the silence, often when people are resisting that, usually it's the doers instead of the beers. I don't think that's correct English, but, it's bringing in that sense of being, right, instead of that sense of doing. In that perspective, it's like, how could I possibly go do that? When I have all these things to go on and whatever. But it expands the heart chakra, doesn't it? Silence is to the heart chakra like water is to our emotional chakra, and it expands us, doesn't it? It makes us feel more expansive. There's so much more room for possibilities, and anyway, I'm loving that, just that connection and the freedom with you to go on kind of this journey to have my own aha moments. Thank you for that.
Well, I think that's beautiful what you just said. Comparing the infinity of silence to the infinity of the ocean. Actually, right now, my husband and I are here in Vero Beach, just near you, and anyway, we normally live in Fairfield, Iowa, but we spend the winters here, and so I walk on the ocean every morning too, and it's so true. Just taking in that expansive nature, the expansiveness of nature, it can shift your whole perception. And I think there's even research that shows that looking at mountains, even pictures of mountains, can do that too, can cause a person's brain to shift and take in a wider perspective. And definitely, if we're not near the ocean or near the mountains, that we still have the ability to experience the infinity inside ourselves every day, every morning, every afternoon. And that's really the miracle of meditation, I think, is that wherever we go, wherever we are, even if we're on a subway, we can close our eyes and meditate and experience that infinite reservoir of happiness, of bliss, of intelligence, of power, of creativity, of silence inside us. And so I think that's just a beautiful point that you brought out.
And I love it, Linda, that, I love the point that you made, because it's not, I used to teach in stress management. It's, when you make your to-do list, make sure you're on the top. And when it comes to, that level of self-care or that medicine that we are calling and knowing to be silence, that it's often, I'll get to it, when I'm doing everything else. What I want to highlight is when you have those moments of silence, and they're not always 20-minute blocks. And I love that you said you find them where they are. Like, you could make a decision on your way home from your office not to turn on the radio and not to be texting at traffic lights, hopefully, that are red, and no other time, or, talking on the phone. You could say, I'm giving myself this level all the way home. There are many different ways to do it within what you're already doing. Now, yes, you're having to focus there, but it's a start, right? It's a head start. It's a jump start. And what I've learned when I do go to the silence in that quiet, a lot of things I had on my to-do list, I decide not to do. Or they're not necessary. It changes you.
Yes, I think that's really true. Or somehow something simpler, a simpler solution comes up, or maybe the person calls you and it's all taken care of. I find that happens often when I, if I have some problems or something, but I just do my regular meditation. For me, it's very much a routine. Morning before breakfast and afternoon before dinner. That's what's recommended with TM and transcendental meditation. But anyway, so I do that. I do that every morning and afternoon. And even though sometimes I struggle with that, of course, because I think I'm just too busy, I can't, but I do it anyway. And what I find so often is that the solutions to the problems come up just because we all know when we're more rested that we we can see solutions where before we saw problems. Suddenly, a good night's sleep, for instance, we see solutions in the morning. And with meditation, with transcendental meditation, the actual research has shown that the rest is actually deeper than sleep, and the mind is also becoming in a heightened state of awareness, heightened alertness, and more alpha 1 waves. So there's actually the whole brain is going in coherence. It's in phase. In other words, it's becoming more coherent. All the different parts of the brain the brain waves are lining up together. And so what they find is that, it's really using more of the full potential of the mind. And therefore, you really are seeing things differently after you meditate. And after you experience that profound silence, you are changed. I agree with you completely.
Well, I tell you, I've explored your website, LindaEgenes.com. That is Linda, EGENES.com. And I want to urge all of you to go and visit Linda and look at the various things she's done. You've co-authored a number of necessary books for us to all benefit from now. How did you step into that door? Did you just say, you know what, I do have some sharing to do about healthy living and disease and different things? Was there a window or a bridge, or is there a story there, or am I just wanting to make one?
No, I think there's always a story. What happened was that I started wanting to be a school teacher, but I found I didn't really have the physical stamina for that, much as I love children. And also, I think because I'm more introverted, I really found it difficult to be on every day for a group of people. And you really have to be somewhat of a performer, I think, in a good way, to teach. You have to be a social person, really. And I found out, that wasn't really me. So I took an MA degree in writing, and then I became a professional writer, and I was writing a lot about Ayurveda. And I had different clients and was writing newsletters and magazine articles and news and ads and different things like that, booklets and stuff. And then this woman, Kumita Reddy, my co-author, who I ended up co-authoring 5 books with, was a medical doctor. She had come from India originally with her husband, but had become trained again, gotten her residency in the U.S. and practiced here for 25 years as an anesthesiologist. She also was teaching at the State University of New York in Albany, and then she decided she started transcendental meditation, and then through that she became interested in Ayurveda, which was kind of the traditional healthcare system of India, which she grew up with, but, which she had not really been practicing. But she became a practitioner of Ayurveda, which means basically means lifespan, improving the lifespan. It's a whole preventive kind of approach, using, diet, exercise, massage therapies, aroma therapies, all these things that are coming into fore now, but, which has been there for thousands of years and being used in India. But anyway, and other ancient traditional systems of medicine. So she went back, and so she started a practice then, and started, using Ayurveda in her practice, and she was having really amazing results with people with chronic disease. And so she wanted to write some books to educate her patients. And so she actually ended up writing about 10 books. But she invited me to co-author several of those books. I ended up co-authoring the one on For a Blissful Baby, which is about pregnancy and childbirth using Ayurveda, these natural modalities to stay healthy in child, before prenatal care, and also post, for the baby and for the mother postpartum, and then we did a book called Super Healthy Kids. And that was, a parent's guide to Maharishi Ayurveda, using all these natural modalities to help kids stay healthy. We did a few other books, too, but those were major ones. And in the book, Super Healthy Kids, we said, that one of the ways to raise a healthy child is to give good role models in literature in different ways. And so then out of that came this book, this current book that we just published, the Ramayana. And that book, because that book does give role models of enlightened heroes and heroines who are, kind of like ideal, who show ideal qualities of behavior and are a great role model for kids. And so that's kind of the progression of how it all unfolded.
Well, I love the books you've co-authored and, all that you're about. And obviously we want to talk more about your most recent book. But back to, for those of you that are listening that know anybody that is now, pregnant, planning to be pregnant, or, having a young child, those beginning phases of that first 5 years and what they are exposed to, not only in the womb as far as eating and healthiness, and then everything thereafter, I just have found it makes a profound difference. And Linda, I'm so glad you're taking that on, and I want to recommend to any of you that know anybody that you forward the show and forward Linda's information. And Christine, it's Linda Egenes. It's EGENES, all E's, EGENES.com. And you can see the books there and what you need to do to order them or to, send them as gifts to your friends. I have seen such a difference with that. And I want to talk a little bit about that, if you're okay with that, Linda, because it's so important, because at some point we want to break the cycle. We want to break the cycle of addiction. We want to break the cycle of, the sugar babies and, all those different things, right? I mean, because it's just a continuous cycle. I was telling someone on a show I had not too long ago that already being a big energy kid, my father he felt like he was doing a good job, but he used Marita bread and he put white sugar on it and butter, and that's what I had for breakfast.
Yeah.
I went to school and I was jumping out of my skin and jumping out of my seat and, and all that. I would have been a lot to deal with already, but my diet was just, it put me over the top. I mean, I almost had the shakes. I would be so sugared up, throughout, and then I would hit the low and then go through the cafeteria and get more sugar in a different package and just be off the ceiling. And that, doesn't have to happen, and educators, when a child is smart and, has a bad grade in conduct, it's usually two things, what they're eating or what's eating them. Right, Linda?
There you go. That's a great way to say it. I love that.
It's one of those things. If you see the conduct, nobody sets out to go to school as a little kid with a matching outfit and says, I'm going to be the biggest troublemaker there. It's a zone. It's a red flag. But I get so passionate about it because it's like, let's break the cycle, people. And the other thing that I just wanted to say, and I wanted you to say to me, well, that could be or not, is that there's two different families that I know very well. And one, raised the children with all fried foods. The child got to pick what they ate. When the mom was carrying the child, we're talking grease, we're talking fried, we're talking diets. No, not even diet. Coke, sodas. We won't name any companies, but just yuck. Okay. And lots of carbs and lots of junk. What I observed about that child after it was born and then through the next phases of the next 10 years of that child's life, it never could get enough. It was always needing that oral fixation, always. And then it continued the same patterns. You take a different mom that watched, ate healthy, didn't eat sugar, didn't drink alcohol, blah, 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 blah. And that particular child, could be at the department store and you could say, I'll buy you something that you want within this amount of money. What would you like to have? And that child would say, I don't really need anything. I'm okay. Okay?
Yeah.
There's such a connection with that, right?
Yes, I think so. Actually, I was just thinking of a conversation I just had with my sister, who I think is listening today. Hi, Kathy. She was saying that she was really grateful that her kids didn't really, her two daughters don't really desire to drink pop. They don't really. Right. They never order it. They just don't crave it. They don't have it in the house. And, Kathy never drank it when she was pregnant, and they never had it around. They just didn't, like I remember when her first daughter, Karina, was young, when she was like 3, Kathy went on a play date with another mom and took the kids, with the kids, of course, and they went to a McDonald's, and it was the first time Karina had ever been to McDonald's, and the other mom said, what's your daughter's favorite Happy Meal? And Kathy was like, well, actually, I've never been here before with her, and so I think that's definitely, that what we, it starts in the womb for sure, and but what you put in front of the children, if you give them healthy foods, they will choose healthy foods. It becomes a habit, and it's what they crave because they feel better doing that, and so they aren't craving the sugar and all that. And it's kind of a habit, and it's also, like we're so subject to marketing now. And so if you have that inside you that you don't crave it, it's such a great tool, a great kind of defense against all this marketing to kids and to all of us every moment with the hyper-palatable foods, to eat all the time. But if you have that kind of stable, physiology where you know what makes you feel good and you just go for those, it's a great defense against all that. And in Ayurveda, they have there's a principle that there are 6 tastes to food. We tend to just think about 3, sweet, sour, salty, like that, but 3 or 4 tastes. But in Ayurveda, there are 6 tastes: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, astringent, and pungent. And astringent means dry, so like beans, like pulses, like lentils and small beans and that. And pungent meaning spicy, and bitter meaning like a bitter green or something. So what Ayurveda says, one of the principles of Ayurveda is that you should have all of those 6 tastes in every meal. And if you have all of those 6 tastes in every meal, then you don't have food cravings. That food cravings usually are a desire to get one of those 6 tastes, and you might not go for that taste. You don't know, I need the bitter taste. You would go instead for sugar. But people who have weight issues and also cravings, often it's because of not really having a balanced diet of all these 6 tastes. So that's part of kind of what's, and it's not that hard to include these 6 tastes once you know about them. And, and also there's another maxim in Ayurveda that if you don't feel satisfied at the end of a meal, if you're still craving something, then the food itself, there's something that was missing from the meal. Something there is missing. A food should bring satisfaction. It should bring a feeling of satisfaction and not craving. So, I think those are some interesting principles that are easy to apply and can help children and families to develop a more balanced diet and to overcome some of these pitfalls of our modern world in which, sugar is found in so many forms and fed to children, and as you say, has, negative consequences to the child.
Linda, I want to thank you so much. Would you be willing, please, to put those in the comment section of our live Facebook streaming so people can pick it up? The 6 types of food to eat, or the 6 tastes. That would be really great if you would do that. And you mean late?
Yeah, sure. Later, you mean?
Yeah, later. Yeah. But when you were talking about drive-through window, I know it's funny. People laugh when I say it's probably close to 20 years that I haven't gone through a drive-through window. But what I would say is, too many drive-through windows lead to the other type of drive-through window. And so I'll just let people kind of sit with that, and then they can kind of put together what I'm talking about. Or if our guest wants to make a comment because they've already figured it out, I'd love to hear from you. If you are loving these kind of shows, please share them with your friends. Because of you, we're featured and heard by people all over the world. We greatly appreciate you, and we tend to feature great people like Linda Egenes, that we give a broad range of possibilities of intentional spirits of what people can really use and benefit from for the tools to living an amazing and incredible life. Please go to templehayes.com and sign up for daily news and staying in touch. I'd love to hear from you, or visit us at firstunity.org. We'll be right back after this short break. Thank you for being with us.
Wouldn't you like to share the programs that inspire you most with audiences around the world? That's easier than ever with mobile giving. Just text Unity Radio to 72727 and help us continue offering spiritual programs that change lives.
God is formless, yet takes many forms. What goes around comes around. Chant the name of the Lord and be free. No one comes to the Father except through me. Ever been confused by the variety and apparent contradiction within world religions? Join Reverend Paul John Roach every Tuesday for insight into those principles held in common by all the great religious traditions in world spirituality, exploring the unity within all cultures and faith traditions. Using discussions, interviews, humor, insight, and practical advice, we will clarify the confusion and reveal simple yet profound truths. Call in with your questions and ideas and help break down the barriers that separate us from one another. That's World Spirituality with Paul John Roach, Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, here on Unity FM, the voice of an awakening world.
Ever notice that there might be something not quite right, but you just can't put your finger on it? We may describe it as an inner stirring, a restlessness, a yearning to find our way home to our heart and higher purpose. Some of us may feel like we are living on borrowed time, that despite our accomplishments, what was once so important to us now just feels empty and meaningless. If you find your heart longing, wanting, looking for a path home to authenticity and purpose, join us for transformation, inspiration, hope, and possibility. Move toward your higher calling. Listen to The Call of Spirit with Evelyn Foreman and tune in to Possibility every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Central Time here on Unity Online Radio.
Thank you for listening to The Intentional Spirit, Seeing and Being with Reverend Temple Hayes. If you have a question or comment about today's discussion, you can email us at theintentionalspirit@unityonlineradio.org. Now, here is your host, Reverend Temple Hayes.
And welcome back, everyone. We're talking with Linda Egenes. She is an author, a broad range of healthy living on the inside and out. Actually, her website is Green and Healthy Inside Out, a writer's journey into all things sustainable. It's Linda Egenes, E-G-E-N-E-S. Thank you again, Linda, for being with us. And I know that your most recent book is such a passion for you. Give us some more insight into the book and some of the reasons that it's important to you and how you feel like we can benefit from it.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. And this has been a wonderful discussion so far. I really enjoyed it, Temple.
Me too. Thank you.
So the name of the book is The Ramayana, a new retelling of Valmiki's ancient epic, complete and comprehensive. And it's by myself and my co-author, Dr. Kumara Reddy, MD. And the book, so I think your question was, what is the book about? I kind of lost track of that, but is that what you wanted to know?
Yeah, absolutely. And what are the ways that you feel it's important to us as readers that it's that, must have on our desk? Mm-hmm.
Well, the Ramayana is the most widely read epic in history. It's an epic poem, and it's probably one of the oldest, and it is one of the longest epic poems at 24,000 verses. But unlike many epic poems, such as we know about, such as the Iliad or the Odyssey or Gilgamesh or something, It's actually not a dusty old tome. It's actually a living spiritual guide to nearly 1 billion people in India today. It's actually the most widely read book in the world today. Not only in India, but also in Nepal, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Cambodia, Myanmar, and Bali. And those billions of people consider it to be their spiritual guide. And it's also gaining more and more popularity in the West, or more and more readership in the West. It's really the story of an enlightened prince, Rama, who is beloved by all the kingdom, yet is unjustly banished to the forest for 14 years. His faithful wife Sita and his devoted brother Lakshman follow him, and the three encounter friends and foes, from forest sages to horrific demons to flying monkeys and wise bears. So there's something in it for everyone. But when his innocent wife Sita is captured by the demon king, the hero Rama ends up not only rescuing her, but liberating the earth from darkness. And as Ramayana scholar Michael Sternfeld noted in the introduction to our book, the Ramayana has been described as the original epic quest, comparable to the Bible, Star Wars, and Romeo and Juliet, all rolled into one. But why has it been revered through the ages? And this comes to a very interesting part about the Ramayana, and that is that it features enlightened heroes. The hero Rama demonstrates ideal behavior in so many different relationships, as a son, as a husband, as a brother, as a ruler, as a disciple, as a friend, and as an enemy. And what makes it interesting is that he and his wife Sita, who is equally, enlightened and also shows great, beautiful qualities, that these enlightened characters through the story are pushed to their extremes. They're pushed to their limits. They're separated. Sita is kidnapped by the demon king, and Rama must rescue her. It's very high stakes. But they are revered because even in the most trying of circumstances, they maintain balance and dignity and demonstrate compassion and forgiveness to friends and foes alike. And so this is why the Ramayana is so beloved throughout the ages, because of because they are examples of ideal behavior, or what is called the principle of dharma in Indian philosophy, or evolutionary behavior, or that which supports ideal living or evolutionary living, dharma. So they uphold dharma. But it's not in abstract terms, it's in this very riveting story. And so that's kind of why I think it's still relevant today.
I believe that this particular book was one of my assignments in shamanism. I believe it was required to read some of it and then kind of give my own interpretation of certain parts of the story. It's like the Grand Wizard of Oz kind of story, isn't it?
Yes, it's definitely like a fairy tale, or like some kind of a fantasy. It's kind of an unbelievable tale.
So much wisdom that you can pull from it, and so many of us can relate as the intention of being intentional and making a difference in the world by being a better person and learning every day, and often having our ego kind of calm down when people don't recognize who we are or what we're doing or what we're about or our intentions or whatever. It's just it's an ongoing everyday life path, isn't it? And this is the type of reading that you can just open a page to what's going to speak to you on that particular day that you might need, which is sometimes the greatest way, I think, to read a book. I have many of those around that I just see, what do I need to know today? What would help me? But all of these characters, regardless of what they went through, regardless of what they faced, there was something within them that stayed grounded and humbled. Would that be? I'm kind of repeating what you said.
No, absolutely. Yes, that's right. Grounded and humble, and also tolerant and forgiving and compassionate. And for me, and many people have said this, that this book kind of, in some ways, came out at a perfect time, because it's really about tolerance towards many different kinds of people. Because Rama himself embraced these. His allies became these flying monkeys, and bears, and he revered this giant bird who tried to save Sita from being kidnapped, but who died in the process. He performed his funeral rites, the bird's funeral rites, as he would for his own father. It's really about tolerance and inclusiveness of all peoples and all species. And it's a very beautiful story in that way. It really kind of exemplifies the saying, "The world is my family," which is a saying from India.
Oh, that's great. Oh, and I just learned something new on Facebook Live. I put up my iPad to actually show people the spelling and how to see the title of the book and the subtitle. So, well, that works.
That's great.
Thank you, Camille, for asking me and reminding me to do that. I love to learn new things. That's a beautiful thing. It's always about learning, and we have all these tools here, and we want to use them. So there you go. That I think that helped. How did you find that this book changed you?
Well, I first read this Ramayana like 35 years ago, and my husband actually introduced me to it. My husband's a Sanskrit scholar, and he translates Sanskrit works into from the literature of India into English. And he was telling me about the Ramayana. He had not translated that, but he was just telling me about it. He had read it years ago, and he was telling me about this beautiful love story and about Rama and Sita. And there's these passages of when they're first exiled to the forest that are so charming, and they're kind of frolicking in the forest, and Ram is making garlands to give to Sita out of fresh flowers, and it's very sweet. And so he was always telling me about these things, so I wanted to read it myself. And then of course, then I found out it was much more than a love story. It was also this incredible wisdom, and I think that there were certain themes throughout it that really struck me and really stuck with me through the years. For one thing, perseverance. This is a story of perseverance. That when Ram first tries to find Sita, he can't. He's just on foot alone. He's been banished from his kingdom. He's just has his brother. There's no one to help him, but he perseveres and eventually, is able to rescue her from the Demon King. And this book itself took. We started it, my co-author and I, 19 years ago. So it in itself was a story of perseverance. It was a labor of love. And then there are all these beautiful, qualities of forgiveness that are displayed in the story. If I could just even tell you one example, even as a child, Ram is beloved by all for his gentle, truthful, and benevolent nature. And throughout the story, he's incredibly forgiving to everyone he meets, even his enemies. And for me, one of the most poignant moments happens at the climax of the story, when he finally destroys the Demon King who has stolen his wife. He offered to just walk away if the Demon King Ravana would just give back Sita. If he would give him back, then Ram was willing to forget and forgive all, but he wouldn't do that, so he had to eventually kill him. But anyway, Rama quietly, at the end, though, when the Demon King is lying flat on the field, Rama is consoling Ravana's brother by saying, "Death quells all enmity. We have achieved our purpose. Perform his rites with honor, for he is as dear to me as he is to you." And this was just such a beautiful, beautiful moment of forgiveness. That, and what Rama was really saying is that, he loved even his enemies as much as he loved his own self or his own brother, as his own brother would love him. And throughout the story, these examples of compassion and kindness and tolerance and forgiveness are there. And I think those are incredible lessons for all of us. For me, especially, I felt like I really imbibed these more into my life, and it has helped me in many, many situations to think back on these instances.
Yeah, and I highly recommend it, and for you to take sections of it and actually journal, what it means to you, because that's when it becomes it goes from a story to the sacred story of how it can affect your life. And I love this kind of reading. I know that I've read many things about Siddhartha, and that essence and becoming the Buddha, and they're life-changing stories because you take what you need, right? And they integrate within you to change you, and I like to say often they can get in the back door, just like the movie or the book, the story, the Wizard of Oz. I mean, you can watch it; it's endless, and it will grab you in a back door. You'll hear it in a different way. You'll have a new insight about it, even though it's the same repetitive story. Because we change, and we hear it at a different level. So I'm very grateful that that you took the time and that you worked with this in a way that would simplify it and that we could all benefit. And it is incredible that, over 1 billion people use these teachings as like their Bible. It's pretty cool. We have a lot of people tuning in with us today, and I want to say hello to Elizabeth from Norway and our friends. We just had somebody join us from Scotland. Hi, Susan. We're so glad you're here. I just love visiting with all of you all over the world. This is just such a great thing that we have, that we're able to communicate in such a glorious and dynamic way, for sure. Wasn't there also a book, Linda, that you and your husband Tom, haven't you written a book together? Did I read that somewhere in my research?
Yes, we did with Kumita Reddy. The three of us did a book called All Love Flows to the Self, Eternal Stories from the Upanishads. And this is like the Ramayana that I just did with Kumita Reddy, in that it's a retelling. It's not a direct translation, these particular stories. They're stories from the Upanishads, which are another section of the Indian literature, which really is all about transcendence and about finding that field of silence that you and I were talking about earlier in our discussion today, and how it's just such a part of the tradition of India that these saints and seers and masters would teach how a person could experience that silence inside themselves through meditation, and then also they talk about it in many different ways. So these are stories, and actually with that book, we originally intended it for children. It was going to be a series of 10 stories for children, each of different picture book. But as it turned out, it was too expensive for the publisher to do that, as separate picture books, so they decided to put it all into one book. So it's a great book for reading aloud to the family. And, it's at bedtime sort of thing, and because it works kind of for children too. And actually even the Ramayana for children who are say 9, 10 years old, it's a great book to read aloud.
Well, I applaud you for your work, and I applaud you for bringing in such a beautiful, philosophy and essence from the Eastern traditions, which have always worked, and they are the ancient medicine to all of our lives. They're part of our core and part of who we are. Reminding everyone to go to LindaEgenes.com, EGENES. Visit me at templehayes.com. I'd love to hear your comments. I'd love to hear in the comment section on Facebook Live what type of authors or speakers or teachers that you would like to see us have. We just love the engagement, because at the end of the day, we're all in this together, learning this incredible journey that we call life. So visit us anytime. Stay in touch in various forms on Facebook and Twitter. And look forward to seeing all of you next week. Linda, thank you so much for being on the show, and thank you for all that you do. It's been a pleasure to have you, and thank you for putting those 6 tastes in the comment section so our guests will be able to receive those, and I know I want it. So thank you for...
Yes, I'll do that. And thank you so much, Temple Hayes. It was just a fantastic interview. It was a wonderful time to be able to speak to you about all these beautiful topics.
Oh, a blessing to me as well. Namaste.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning into The Intentional Spirit, Seeing and Being with Reverend Temple Hayes. Join us every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Central for tools and simple applications which will support you from being alive to fully living. This program is brought to you in part by First Unity at Unity Campus in St. Petersburg, Florida. To learn more about this ministry, go to www.unitycampus.org or www.templehays.org. What if you were intentional about your life, committed to having more energy and being more vibrant? Join Reverend Temple Hayes, spiritual leader of First Unity at Unity Campus in St. Petersburg, Florida, as she guides you on a journey to an intentional and energetic life. Empower your life and fully express the wondrous energy, love, and joy you hold in your wildest imagining. Joyfully and actively know that more important than what happens after you die is the deeper and enriching concern for what happens while you're living. How can you experience an incredible life right now? Learn how each week on The Intentional Spirit, Seeing and Being, Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Central Time, right here on Unity Online Radio, the voice of an awakening world.
When your world goes topsy-turvy and turmoil threatens, try this exercise. Think about tranquility. Let the screen of your mind reflect whatever the word tranquility may bring. Perhaps you'll see a majestic snow-covered mountain peak, perhaps a clear still lake or a sparkling stream. Enjoy whatever image comes. It's your thought. Now let yourself find the place of complete stillness deep within you. Here you are poised, serene, and peaceful. The poet T.S. Eliot wrote, "At the still point, there the dance is." The dance of life continually shifts its rhythm and form in its attempt to carry you beyond limited ideas of who you are. Enter into the still point of your being. There, regardless of what may surround you, you will find peace. This message has been brought to you by the Association of Unity Churches International. To find a Unity Church near you, visit www.unity.org.
This world as it is. The world is full of voices, advertising, television, politics, colleagues, family, and friends. All are too happy to tell us how to live. In all of that noise, it's easy to miss the one voice that matters, your own soul. What would happen if you could hear that voice? Imagine the clarity, confidence, and courage that would be yours, and the life you could create. Join Janet Connor, best-selling author of Writing Down Your Soul, The Lotus and the Lily, and Your Soul Wants 5 Things, as she and her guests explore how to hear the call of the soul and create the soul-directed life. Live Thursday at 1 p.m. Central, only on Unity Online Radio, the voice of an awakening world. Go inside to find my God.
Blissful stillness, come to me. Blissful stillness, come.
Tens of thousands of listeners, like you, have been transformed through the ministry of Paulette Pipe and her program, Touching the Stillness, one of the longest-running programs on Unity Online Radio. Paulette's latest album of guided meditations, Blissful Stillness, is a new and different experience. The mystical quality of her beautiful voice will reverberate through a Zen-style meditation, a mudra meditation, which are yoga hand positions to deepen your practice, and guided meditations which we know and love. It features a new instrumental sound by Kelly Hunt with a bonus track by Kathy Zavada. Experience a blissful immersion into quiet and stillness by purchasing your own copy at shop.unityonline.org.
Blissful